Welcome. I'm Bonnie Libhart, and you're watching Vision Plus. Have you been thinking lately, after hearing of many of the things that are going on, that something really strange is going on into our world? Have you thought about the fact that maybe your children, your grandchildren, my children and grandchildren that their teachers are being taught by New Age professors? We want to explore some of the things that are going on in our world today. Is our world moving to a new world order? Has it already happened? Are people from the very top involved in this? Are we asleep and allowing it to happen? Today, when I was reading out of even my devotional, it talked about in John 13:17, if you know these things, happy are ye if you do them. Now, it's talking about the action that we must take if we are aware of what we must do to change some of the things that are happening. It is referring to the moorings that must be cut, and God will have to break them by a storm, and then He can send them out. Do we want a storm that God would have to send upon us before we will take action? I always think about when you're at a street where there's a light or not a light and accidents happen. It's a dangerous street. I know after our daughter was killed, they added two street lights, and over light up. In other words, there were 3 or 4 lights that were added after she was killed. Well, we're not saying that the area of the street caused that. We don't really know. There were a lot of mysteries that went on. But it seems that it's after something happens that we take action. And sometimes it's too late. Well, we have a person with us today from Anchorage, Alaska for the last 29 years, and originally from this area, has children of his own, grandchildren. He is concerned about what is happening, but he's a little different than maybe I've been in the past. He's doing something about it, and we're going to learn from him. His name is Tombower, went to school right in the Tennessee Valley area. Tell us a little bit about who Tombower is, Tom, and welcome to Vision Plus and Channel 58 and Victory Network.
Thanks, Bonnie. I appreciate you having me here. I was born here in North Alabama, and about the time I became an adult, I went off on my own to other parts of the world and been in Alaska 29 years. And really, I'm not to be considered an expert on anything. I don't consider myself an expert, but I am a concerned citizen. And I started seeing something was wrong, and not just which party was in office, that, you know, you might be for that party or against that party and see the good or the bad. But it went beyond that. And through much research, thousands of hours of studying, and attending many seminars, I found what I saw was a common thread that led far beyond the political party.
Well, what's your own personal political connections?
Bonnie, I cannot say. It's not that I won't say. I cannot say, because the way I vote is what I call shotgun voting. I have voted Republican, Democrat, Independent. I try to learn something about the party, the person, in other words, not the party as the political party, but the individual person, where the man or woman, no matter which political affiliation, and if they have the agenda that I believe in their campaign, and I think they're truthful and I can find out something about them to believe in them, then I will vote. And it just makes my vote up, hoping to get good people in, because this is one of the problems that we have anymore. It's in politics, unfortunately, we have bureaucrats instead of statesmen, and I use that word generically, whether it's men or women when I say statesmen. We have got to get back to having statesmen in politics rather than bureaucrats.
Well, what are your views of how the United States is working today in general?
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't matter which party is in office. If you're really, I don't want to offend anyone, but I do want to open some eyes today. I'm going to say some things very pointedly in this interview, and I want people to take the approach that this person has got to be, in other words, look at everything I say and prove whether I'm right or not. Instead of accepting what I'm saying, just say, I want to find out if what he said today is the truth. And in the viewer's research of what I'm saying, they'll find out. And then they'll know and believe, because it's shocking what's happening.
Well, what about the political condition? What's your opinion?
Okay, if you'll notice that whether it's Republican or Democrat in office, if you'll be fair about it and put the party lines aside, we're going downhill. Every administration, we're in worse shape than we were the administration before, or the election before.
The debt is just astronomical.
Okay, now
it grows each time.
That's one thing to look at. The debt is growing, $4 trillion. Okay, we're hearing taxes needing to be increased. We're seeing opposition to lower spending, to cut spending, but wanting to add taxes. Now, it happens that it's Democrats in office now, but what did we have when there was Republican in office? More debt, more debt. So it's taken both members of the family, typically husband and wife, having to work, even sometimes one or both of them working additional jobs or some form of supplementary income. And we're seeing that we're not getting ahead. But there's moral decay in the nation rapid today. Children that aren't being taken care of at home by parents, they're being taken care of by someone else or by the television because the parents are strapped to work. So looking at the common thread and following it back, I kept seeing something far beyond the political party that was in office. So my agenda today is not that I'm Republican or Democrat or Independent and I'm trying to convince anybody that. I'm trying to say to people, please look beyond the party lines and see what the common thread is that's causing this destruction and the moral decay in our nation.
What is that common thread?
Well, surprisingly, it leads beyond the borders of the U.S. And I was shocked to find things involving our monetary system, involving really who puts the people in office, who tells the people in office what to do. It is a fact that the presidency of the United States is controlled by foreign interests, by what's known as international elitist or internationally elite people. And we're talking about like the Rothschilds of European countries, Rockefellers of the U.S., but do not have allegiance to the United States of America and to the U.S. Constitution.
Well, what about the status of our Constitution? I want to hear more about this international, but let's just stay here in this country for a moment, if that's possible, with our Constitution. I know that I had written a column in a newspaper for a few years and wrote about what's happening in the Constitution. I have very carefully read it in the last year, and I'm astounded at what it says as compared to what we're told it says.
A very unusual person, Bonnie. If you have a Constitution, a copy of it in your house, and if you have read it recently, you are very unusual.
It was because I was so upset with some things that were going on. I even wrote an article titled, "Do We Need a Second American Revolution?" because of the fact that I felt that what was happening was wrong. But I'm just one person, and I'm hearing you say, and nobody talked to me about this. This is just from my dad reading us things that were in the Constitution on the 4th of July every year. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, I haven't heard it, in essence, from another human being until I'm hearing it now from you.
Okay,
so you're on the same wavelength, and I didn't know that.
And I'm just one person. Each viewer is just one person, and one person's important, and that's what we need to do. In fact, I would like to ask the viewers today a very pointed question. Do you have a copy of the Constitution in your home? If so, have you read it? Have you read it to your children? It's very important. Now, you know the answer to that. I don't know. But I would beg of you, if you do not have one, please obtain one. You can actually get them free.
And I was going to say, I know that I have quite a few copies, and I would be willing, if they just send me a self-addressed stamped long envelope, I'd send them one, just as long as they last. And maybe I could Xerox the ones after they're take the last one.
I can tell you how to get a supply that's never-ending, that you can keep sending people, so you can give them the information how to contact you at the appropriate time.
Right, very good. 205-539-8868, or a post office box 2583 in Huntsville 35804. But we'll give you that again. Go on. I didn't mean to get involved in that, except I knew that I can see that box. I made a speech in Arkansas about patriotism and getting back to the Constitution. And in fact, Jim McCready gave me a box to give each person there that was at that meeting. So go ahead. Now tell me about the status, because this is something that I've been doing all on my own little corner of the world, and now I'm hearing from you.
Okay. And by you reading your Constitution and seeing what's actually happening today, you see it's quite different.
Shocked.
Okay. Now let's just take the money, for instance.
Right.
The Constitution says that Congress shall have the power to coin money.
Absolutely.
Okay. But what happens today, now here's a point that I want the public that's listening to check me on this and find out, because I'm going to tell them the truth about it, but it's going to be so different to what 99+% of them know and believe, that they're going to be shocked what they hear from me, and they're going to think this guy is lying. So I beg them to research and find out and see what the truth is. Let me just show you this.
Okay.
Now, this is a $20 bill that commonly we accept as money from our federal government. You ask from Anchorage, Alaska to here in the Tennessee Valley, you ask people, said, who owns this? They'll say the federal government. Well, it may shock them, but the federal government does not own this. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing actually prints this, just like an ordinary print shop would print as a subcontractor. They sell this, whether it's got the 1, 5, 20, or 10, 20, 50, 100, no matter what the number is up here in the corner. They sell this to the Federal Reserve for 2 cents, well, it's 2 1/3 cents each. No matter what denomination, it's printed to cover the paper, the ink, the labor, and sold to the Federal Reserve System, which is actually a private banking institution.
A private banking. Now, wait a minute. If it says the word federal, I'm thinking government, I'm thinking President, Congress,
That's right.
Senate,
You're thinking that.
Legislators.
Along with the majority of our 265 million Americans thinking that. But when you hear Federal Express, do you think it's the government delivering packages?
No, I know that's a private company.
They use the name Federal Reserve in order to make people think that it was part of the federal government. And December the 23rd, 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into existence. 3 years later, in 1916, he said, unwittingly, I have destroyed my country. He realized that soon that he had destroyed his country by putting the monetary system into private hands. Now, the Federal Reserve is owned by very few of these international elitists, Rockefellers, Warburgs, Rothschilds, such as that. And 1920.
Now, how do you back that up?
All kinds of documents. I've got things here today. I'll read you quotes from Secretary of Treasury and so forth stating these facts. And there's 4 books that I have with me. They would be many. There's, you know, it takes thousands of hours on all of it. But there's some very precise statements and concise statements. So if anyone would want the
documentation that we have, all they got to do is get in touch with us, and we will actually give them the addresses of all the, is so many of them, it would just take up all of our time if all we did is gave documentation. But what we're saying, I hear you saying is that you have it and that you will be happy to
I want to read a couple of quotes. Maybe while you're making a point on something, I'll find some of these and read them.
Okay, very good. Because I was thinking about my concern really is twofold. Is number one, in reading all of the material that I've been given lately, how can we wake the United States up within a month or a year, and how can it be done? Who would lead and guide us? And some other things I just jotted down when I woke up this morning, break of dawn, thinking about it. At the present time, the military is under the president, and I'm hearing new words about the money people. How do you get a person to stand for freedom, or a whole nation to stand? Is anyone thinking of this? Right now, the awareness, how can it become a force? I kind of gave you, that's called a multifaceted question. If it makes any sense, we'll boil it down to one by the time we're finished.
Well, Bonnie, each of us as a concerned citizen have to find out the truth of what's going on.
Just like the Bible says, study to show thyself approved, a workman unto God. We're supposed to each one study. So about our country, we each have to study.
Right. Now we've heard in the past, vote. And I advocate voting, go to the polls and vote. But I can assure you, just going and voting is not the answer, because what I'm telling you today is the common thread behind that. No matter who you vote for, the control comes from a certain organization, which has a foreign seat to it. And I want...
For the ones that are normally pushed in the liberal media, in the press, there are candidates that do come up occasionally that usually have a difficult time getting the funds, that are on their own, that could possibly be ones that maybe we'd want to vote for. But go ahead, let me see what you...
Right. Now, Bonnie, the CFR I've referred to this common thread.
That stands for...
The Council on Foreign Relations.
All right.
That is really what controls the presidency of the United States.
Now how
that's
do
going
you
to
have
shock
that
people.
Documented?
Okay, in 1921, when the CFR was formed, it was for the express purpose of creating a new world order. And they were so bold in 1950 as to send their foreign agent, James Warburg, before a Senate subcommittee, and he told the committee, we shall have world government whether you like it or not, by conquest or consent. Now, stood before Senate and told them this. Now, we've gone right along for the last several decades and have elected Republicans and Democrats into the White House. Yet, each one of them was CFR controlled, CFR members. Now, let's give you an example of the present-day administration. I'm not picking on Democrats, because I can back up, and I also can show you on Republicans.
Now, this is from a publication that says New World Order Means Death and Destruction by Phoebe Courtney, the frightening power and aims of the anti-American CFR, which controls President Bush. Now, that was Bush.
You see, that was about Bush. Okay, let's talk about President Clinton, and who is a CFR member, and the Council on Foreign Relations. So then you have the Trilateral Commission, which was formed by David Rockefeller in 1973 after he read a book written by, I have trouble with this name, Zbigniew Brzezinski, which was a national security advisor for 5 presidents. And in his
Brzezinski.
book, right, in his book, he said that we have to do end runs around the Constitution and gradually erode it away. Now, David Rockefeller took that.
Now, that's heavy.
That's heavy.
Wait a minute. End runs around the Constitution.
Eroding it away.
Eroding it away.
Little at a time. And they're doing that.
Of course, that's what happened in Germany with Adolf Hitler, and he's the first one that coined the phrase New World Order.
Absolutely.
But that even is borrowed from the Egyptians, who had the same concept of having the whole world to be controlled. And then, of course, Alexander the Great, felt there was no other worlds to conquer. So it's like it's cyclic, or comes every few centuries or generations.
Well, when Mr. Bush started talking about it during Desert Storm, he became real bold
Then everybody
and brought
in
it
the
out.
US of A watching Desert Storm heard about
Right,
it at
but
that time.
now we're talking about the Council on Foreign Relations, then the Trilateral Commission that started in '73, and they have two other institutes that feeds information for policy making, the Institute of International Economics and the Institute of Policy Studies. Now, these four are the methods to do end runs around the Constitution and erode it away. Now, when you go into the number of Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, these three positions are always CFR members. Always.
Okay, now we're getting into a lot of information. What we need to do is, we may get into more of it because it's just too much material to cover. What I want to hear is, what is the solution that you would recommend in addition to recommitment to the Lord Jesus Christ and to realize that God is creator of all mankind and we need to pray for our president, but how can it become, what you're saying, a force? How can we, let's say that every viewer that watches this TV program, wherever it's shown throughout the United States, what can that viewer do to be a part of the force to turn it around?
Okay.
Be aware is one thing, but we got to have an action step. What can me and my household do?
You have got to become educated as to what is going on, and make sure that your children, your relatives, are educated. Now,
After we're educated,
because let me tell you what's happening in education today. Now, I'm not saying every school, but I'm going to tell you it is prevalent. Now, let me read you some quotes, and then I'm going to show you to educate yourself to defend against this. We really need to do a mini-series on this, because each one of these subjects I bring up could stand 30 minutes or an hour. So it's kind of unfair to the viewing audience, you know, to
because
the
I want
viewers
to
to go
get
through
the
so quickly.
action step.
But in this new age movement and the new world order, let me just read some quotes. Dr. Chester
only got
Pierce.
3 minutes left.
Only 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Parents, would you want this to happen? Would you want your children to be taught this way? Because Dr. Chester Pierce of Harvard is teaching teachers. He's the guru of the New World Order, and he is teaching students that want to become teachers and teaching teachers. Says, every child in America who enters school at the age of 5 is mentally ill because he comes to school with an allegiance to our institutions toward the preservation of this form of government that we have. Patriotism, nationalism, and sovereignty, all that proves that children are sick because they are truly, all that proves that children are sick because a truly well individual is one who has rejected all those things and is truly an international child of the future.
So what are you saying to say that?
See what's being taught your children in school, because this is an educator of teachers. And he's saying that the values and integrity and the family that we've known for generations is being called sick by the New Age people. He's saying children that come out of Christian homes and with these values are sick. That's right.
And so
now listen to this, what Dr. Sidney Simon, a lecturer educator, says. We do not need any more preaching about right and wrong. The old thou shalt not simply are not relevant. Value clarification is a method for teachers to change the value of children without getting caught.
Yeah, so that's New Age. And what we're saying is that if you will get in touch with us here, we will get information to you and an action step that you can take that Tom Brewer has. I mean, the information primarily is just mind-boggling. However, there is something that you can do. What is one thing they can do from hearing this?
Get involved, participate, be involved in the indictments that are being prepared for some of our past leaders from White House, Pentagon levels. And believe me, there are not radical patriot groups, but logical, concerned, educated patriot groups that are bringing charges, and you're going to see activity. Become involved and participate.
in the scriptures, I'm going to read some that's in one of these books, Operation Vampire Killer 2000, American Police Action Plan for Stopping the World Government Rule. It gives scripture references, Leviticus 26 and 27. It goes right on through Deuteronomy 18:10, 12, Acts 16:16, Revelation 9:21, 18:23. We have them for you. So if you let us know that you're interested in seeing that your children and grandchildren and neighbors aren't caught up in this, and that this doesn't happen to our country, then it's time to take action now. We cannot wait. Tom Brewer.
Okay, Bonnie, can I read one more statement,
30
please?
30
okay,
seconds.
now this is from the humanist curriculum, some of the people that I've quoted. Now here's what they're saying. It's okay to lie, it's okay to steal, it's okay to have premarital sex, it's okay to cheat or to kill if these things are part of your value system and you clarify these values for yourself. The important thing is not what values you choose, but that you have chosen them yourself freely and without coercion of parents, spouse, priests, friends, ministers, or social pressure of any kind. This is what is being taught to the teachers of children, for the teachers to teach children. Now, parents, if that's what you want in your schools, if that's what you want in society...
Since we know most people do not want it.
That's right.
Now is the time to take action.
Apathy will let this happen.
Read the books that your children have. Go to the meetings. Go to the classrooms. Do not drop your children off at daycare centers. Do not drop your children off at any kind of place
without knowing
what's going on and the people involved, and let's get back to the Christian principles that will keep ourselves alive and our country alive.
We've got to know what's happening. It's just like our UN troops, the troops that are in Somalia now, U.S. troops under UN control. First time that U.S. troops have been under a foreign power. You just well say foreign power because the UN basically is controlled by foreign powers. Our Joint Chiefs of Staff could not bring them home if they wanted to.
Tom Brewer, originally from this Tennessee Valley area, and for the last 29 years in Anchorage, Alaska, awakening us to some of the things that are happening in our schools, in our communities. I'm Bonnie Libhart, and you've been watching Vision Plus on Victory Network. Bless your heart for watching. Get in touch with us. Post Office Box 2583, Huntsville 35804, or 205-539-8868. Bless your heart for watching.